Right, well, ladies and gents, part of the headline is Japan crushes Hollywood. So I've got a bit of a doozy for you. We're going to shuffle on to your favorite segment on the show. But brace yourself for some really annoying audio. But still your favorite segment.
So what kind of dumb shit did Grace say this week?
It's one of the greatest things I ever saw. I loved it.
FYI, that's not the annoying audio. Like, it's what's about to come is the annoying audio. That's an amazing song.
Actually, that song's pretty popular.
It is.
It
I
has
love that
transcended a bit.
So good.
I love the faces she makes.
Grace is back, and it looks like, I mean, we did this segment on her commentary about Godzilla -1 before, and it got a lot of views, like over 60,000 views, I think, now on the second channel. And I think it was probably brought to her attention because she makes some comment in this niche market section, which we're going to watch in its entirety. We're going to stop it here and there. And they are so ridiculous. It's unbelievable. She's trying to pass up that conservatives have claimed Godzilla for some bizarre reason, rather than just people wanting a good movie. So I'll let her do the talking. And yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of sad here because I think I have not seen this yet, but just going by the title and where she possibly was starting from, I can kind of understand because I'm one of those people that's like, look, I get it. Animation, the anime and some Japan entertainment is doing very well here, but it's still not nearly as popular as, you know, the Western entertainment we have here yet. But that being said, Godzilla is an exception to the rules. I said that earlier. But I'm curious to see what her argument is for this, because if she really went to the point of a whole like, this is a conservative movement for Godzilla. Wow, she's
honestly,
stretching.
Just watch it.
Let's discuss. But first off, while there's some exciting developments here for sure, it's important to note that we're still in a niche space here. A $12.8 million debut for any Hollywood film would be considered disastrous, and in fact has been for films this year, like The Creator and A Haunting in Venice. Gareth Edwards is probably like, what? I opened it around there. Why is nobody saying great stuff about my movie? Poor Gareth Edwards. And then also, I think to some degree it's fan chatter. Like, you know, like The Creator, A Haunting in Venice, everybody's like, meh. But with these other movies, everybody's like, look how high we got them, right? And Strange World, by the way, another animated movie, last year debuted around here. But when it came in at this number, everybody was like, the end is near for Disney. This is so
okay. Well, she's already.
Well, that's because I had a $200 million budget, you dunce.
Exactly. You knew exactly where it was headed with this. There's a big difference here.
She is an idiot.
Oh.
Idiot.
And granted, and again, she picked two good examples, though, Creator and Haunting in Venice, because both cost 80 and 60 million respectively. So there you go. Those are actually pretty good examples of Hollywood keeping the budget down, but still making duds.
Right? Yeah.
But Haunting in Venice, she's ignoring this part too, actually made its money back when it was all said and done because it kept playing. They kept it off of streaming for however long it was. I had to wait a while to see it. And it did eventually squeak by with a profit.
So the thing about The Boy and the Heron, Studio Ghibli films, I can't find an accurate reported budget for this film, right? The Boy and the Heron. But they're usually made for between anywhere from $3 million to $50 million. So there's quite a big range, but I don't think I've seen one budget of a Studio Ghibli film that was over $50 million.
Yeah. Well, Miyazaki is one of their premier directors too, so I imagine he gets a pretty decent budget.
But still, like, not a lot of cash, essentially, budget-wise. But just, honestly, keep watching. It gets worse.
similar to Hollywood cutting Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon a break, yet crucifying the Marvels, even though their box office performances and budgets have been about the same.
Is she really this fucking dumb?
Yes.
Yes, mate.
Culture, you know where I'm going to go with this one.
Go.
What's the difference between these two movies and the Marvels?
The budgets.
Beyond that, what else? What else?
The promotion and advertisement costs.
They're split.
Oh,
see these two movies here,
Yeah.
Napoleon and Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
They're produced by streamers and studios.
Right.
So their actually initial plan has always been to go straight to streaming or eventually to streaming.
Right.
The theatrical release is all pomp and circumstance. So whatever money they make in the theaters on this, whatever.
Gone.
It's just to get a fucking Oscar nomination at the end of the day. Marvels cost probably as much as those two put together, let's be real. So that part's true, like you said. Maybe Napoleon costs a little bit more. But it wasn't made for a streaming service unless you count Disney Plus. It was made to go to theaters. It was the tentpole Marvel movie this year besides Guardians of the Galaxy.
So it gets worse.
It's all a matter of perspective, expectations, and let's be honest, feelings. Hollywood has long been frustrated by superhero movies dominating the theatrical space, and they want more serious cinematic fare to do well. So that's kind of affected how they've discussed those films. And then likewise, a number of fans are frustrated by Hollywood's lack of quality and strong one-sided messaging, making them eager to see outsiders not just thrive, but dunk on Hollywood. For instance, a number of conservatives have rallied behind -1 as some kind of Godzilla-sized middle finger to Hollywood. Yet director-writer Takashi Yamazaki's greatest wish isn't just to work in Hollywood, but for Kathleen Kennedy. So,
no, he didn't say he wants to work directly for Kathleen Kennedy, you fucking retard. He said he wants to make a Star Wars movie. He didn't say it was his greatest wish either. Secondly, it's not conservatives that have rallied around -1 as a dunk on Hollywood. -1 has dunked on Hollywood by virtue of the fact that it has made profit when largely Hollywood movies have not made any profit currently. The Marvels has made no profit. Godzilla -1 has made profit already. So when you're talking about dunking on Hollywood, it has already dunked on Hollywood. It has already crushed Hollywood. Has it made as much profit as a Hollywood movie tends to do when they go into profit? No. But has it still made profit, whereas other movies that cost 10 times, 20 times the amount of the movie? Yes. Anyway, sorry.
He's overlooking the bigger picture here too. And that is how horrible all the Hollywood movies are doing for these two movies to be as successful as they are. Let's be real here. If we lived in a world where they were still pumped, like if the Marvels had been good and a bunch of the other movies they released in the last few weeks had been good, we wouldn't even be really talking about this Boy and the Heron or -1 because they'd be buried way down at the bottom of the box office list because everything else would be dominating. That's the thing that sticks out to me more than anything is you have these two movies here that only made 12 and 8 million. Okay, yeah, she's right about that. But guess what? They're also number 1 and 3. And you have to combine a bunch of the other movies that came out around them to even get to like $20 million, which is the standard weekend on a average weekend for the theaters for the number 1 film. They aren't even doing that anymore. See, that's the thing I'm seeing here is how bad Hollywood is right now. Nobody wants to go see any of their crap. None of it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. The only thing that's stuck in the middle here is Hunger Games, and that's barely hanging on for dear life.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely absurd. I mean, you know, she doesn't make any comment on the fact that it's doing well. She's trying to claim, and this is why it's so disingenuous, and this is why she made, this is why this particular segment made the dumb shit that Grace said this week segment of the show. Because what she's trying to claim is that Godzilla -1 is doing as well as it is, not by virtue of the quality of the film, but because conservatives have rallied around it as a means to dunk on Hollywood. No, dumb fuck. It's doing well because it's a very good film and good word of mouth. Fans went out to watch it week 1, right? And then if you'd notice, from the Monday onwards, it was one of the it was number one. It was crossing over $1 million each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, into its second week. Why? Because the word of mouth is so strong, because fans started talking about it so widely. It's not that conservatives rallied around it, it's that fans and the word of mouth was so good. And this is what's so infuriating, because people say Grace Randolph is so good and they only watch her for her movie math, generally speaking. Her movie math, she takes directly from fucking Deadline. She takes it all. She doesn't actually analyze anything herself, because if she did, and she was looking at the actual reports of how things have started to fluctuate and change, she would be able to discern the fact that this movie has done so well because of word of mouth. And you'd see it, you can literally see it, you know, the fact that it opened nice broadly, and then still actually maintained. Movies don't do that. It had like a 23% drop off or something like that, 25% drop off. That's insane. Why is it doing that? Because the word of mouth is so good. People initially went out to watch it, fans, and now normal people are watching it because the word of mouth is great. Grace, you take everything from Deadline, all of your breakdowns of race, ethnicities, all of it you take from Deadline. You're just a fucking copycat.
Well, it's even dumber than that, because like she's taking this from a perspective of like we're even better at this than she is, because like she's trying to push this on the conservatives, right? But what about her bias? What about her bias during Sound of Freedom? Not once do I remember her ever giving Sound of Freedom the credit it was, because this is where I was getting pissy with a few people in our own community because of the way they were reporting stuff. I'm like, you guys are ignoring how Sound of Freedom is playing, right? And Culture remember calling some people out on this shit. I'm like, this thing is playing better than all the Hollywood movies. Like, look at her screen average, right? And it's on a half or a third of the screens of all these bigger films, and it's overplaying what all these other movies are. And before we knew it, it was a $200+ million hit.
Well, it made profit, whereas Indiana Jones didn't. I mean, that's hilarious. Jesus. It's not... Godzilla Minus One is not a political movie. Like, it's just a good film. Oh dear. Anyway, there's a little bit more I think that's funny, so I think we should watch a little bit more. Culture, you haven't said anything, actually.
I think he's clearly...
What do you want me to say? She's an idiot. I've been saying she's an idiot for years.
He's practicing what his mother taught him.
If
you can't say nothing nice,
Tom's 100% right. She does zero analysis, right? This is just talking points for the studios, and that's why she goes hard in the paint against films that are overperforming the market, that don't have a built-in audience. She is a, what do you call it? A puddle on hot takes. She is like a mile wide and an inch deep. Whereas like everybody else just somehow finds a way to talk about this more intelligently, and I include like people like Movie Bob and others in there that I, still think are not quite there yet. But when you talk about film and you talk about analyzing its business side of things, this is not what you go to Grace for. What you go to Grace for, I don't know. Maybe the goofy language and terrible makeup, but she doesn't do any analysis as to, did the film make money? Did it make the studio money? Will there likely be another movie because this movie made money? She's consume product, preach goodness and wonderful things about product, and then move to next product.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Anyway, sorry.
Shall we watch a little bit more then?
Yeah, sure. That's your cue.
Very much outside of the conversation that's happening in the North American space right now with fans. Poor guy. All right, so he's like, he has no idea what he's getting into. So while it's really cool to see some outliers for sure get their moment in the spotlight, and they might be opening the door for others, and things might be changing, right? But I mean, if it is, it's the very early days. And also it's exciting to see movie theaters think outside the box, not only because it gets these outliers their moment, but also they have to. Movie theaters are struggling. So they're like, what else can we put in here? And, this has certainly helped them during these 2 slow weeks post-Thanksgiving. But these movies aren't generating enough business to keep theaters operating at the level that they're supposed to, that they need to for the long term. Like Godzilla -1 and The Boy and the Heron aren't even going to get Wish and Napoleon domestic numbers, and those movies are considered huge flops. Now, to be fair, as many of you pointed out last week, Godzilla -1 has a much smaller budget of just around 15 million, and The Boy and the Heron's budget, while much bigger, did still come in under 100 million. But Hollywood needs blockbusters, and the whole movie business, theatrical in North America, needs Hollywood blockbusters to come back online. The whole business worldwide, by the way, can't survive without them. I think that maybe 20, 30, 50 years from now, it might be different, but the other film industries across the globe just aren't able to pull in the kind of numbers that Hollywood can when Hollywood is working as it should. So
that's the one thing she said that is correct. Because this is where I was coming from the start. Yes. It's great to see these things do well. It's great when, certain anime properties and stuff do well, or we have some kind of import that does well, but none of these things have done well enough to replace what Western entertainment has done and is still technically the biggest export. For how much longer, we'll have to wait and see. Right. But for the time being, like the US still makes double what everybody else pretty much does on average or more.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, that's basically enough of that anyway. But to kind of close, when she's talking about Hollywood in general, and to touch on what you said there anyway, she is right. She is right. The business does need Hollywood to come back online properly. But I would argue,
100%, yeah.
Well, I would argue it's a good thing that it's not, and I would argue that potentially it'd be a good thing if it never came back online. Quite frankly. It's been rampant propagandized bollocks for quite a while. And, it's been nice to see something just different now come through that is none of that. Now, unless Hollywood sort of, pivots to this type of content, actually good content again, I would argue I don't want it to come back online. And it's part of the industry or part of the world sort of economy that I'd be more than happy to die and never come back.
It's due for a change because, I mean, if you go, there's a pattern. And I'm kind of been working on something on this in the background for a while, but I'll try to keep this brief. There's a pattern that basically once you get past the moguls in the earlier first, 40, 50 years of Hollywood or whatever, up through the 60s, basically, when all the moguls died off or sold off their companies, that's when there's been this pattern throughout ever since, and it generally runs for about a decade, and we're just getting on the cusp of that decade again. The only exception was there was this patch between 94 and 98 where things were actually kind of a renaissance for indie filmmakers, but that was a result of the 80s and into the 90s, and it's a long convoluted thing I'm not going to get into, but yeah, we're kind of reaching a point, though, is the whole point I'm getting to, where we're on the cusp of a change. Something has to change. Something will change. We're where the Hollywood was at the beginning of the 70s and has found itself almost in the 2000s. And so we're at that point again. And the big reason is because this is their own fault, because they could have kept this going for a while. They had the formula kind of figured out. What happened was they interjected too much superhero bullshit into the mix. And then the politics got involved. And then you also add in your superstar producer / creative directors like J.J. Abrams, Zack Snyder, Kurtzman, whoever you want here. Though that all, including killing the movie star, which in turn killed the regular movie.
Yeah.
That is where we're at right now. Hollywood has to go back to basics and remember how to make movies again. Martin Scorsese, it was not wrong. Superhero movies and franchise fare has killed cinema. It is dead.
Yeah. Yep.
Oppenheimer might actually be kind of poignant. It came at the very end of actual cinema and it was a big, huge bomb that did well. You know what I mean? Like about it being about the big bomb. Yeah.
Can't argue with any of that.